Transformers Exodus, Chapter 9. All Armorhide had ever wanted to do was make people laugh. He was from an artist's caste, and therefore permitted an amount of social latitude generally forbidden to more socially integrated castes. Comedy being his chosen art, he had found an audience in 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤, specifically in the Great Hall of the 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤 Casino. An orbital station, slung in a fixed path visible from Iacon and the other great cities of the north, 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤 Casino was a safe haven for those who fled convention. It teemed with artists, social malcontents, those who preferred to view the workings of a society from the outside. These were Armorhide's people, and it was his life's work to give them a moment to forget the mundane cares of caste and isolation on a planet that wandered through space, cut off from all other Cybertronian settlements since the collapse of the space bridges how many cycles ago. He was telling a joke about the space bridges, an elaborate story that involved the prices charged by an invented force of entropic toll collectors. The joke was failing, and it began to go worse as he improvised a faster way to wrap it up. The crowd laughed because it was his crowd. He had performed for them in 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤's Great Hall dozens of times. They would cut him a break on a bomb joke once in a while. But he was frustrated because tonight, of all nights, the great distant leader Sentinel Prime was in the audience. Sentinel Prime! The most important night of his life, and his timing was off. Even his old material, guaranteed to get a laugh, wasn't doing the job. The audience must have known Sentinel Prime was there, and they were nervous too. Then, a couple of things happened at once. The first was that Sentinel Prime, keeper of the castes, marshal of the armies of Cybertron, the leader to whom it was rumored Cybertron itself had granted the matrix of leadership, he laughed. At a joke about Armorhide's last failed joke, no less. The second was that the entire wall that faced the exterior of the station blew out with an enormous rush of air, preceded by the unmistakable sound of explosive charges detonating. Starscream assumed alt form reflexively when the explosion sounded through the Great Hall, but then he froze the change and returned to his protoform, hauling Sentinel Prime out of the way of a collapsing column. The station's artificial gravity wavered with the initial blast. Then, atmosphere poured into the space, sucking a number of audience members with it. Through the holes in the wall came a number of Cybertronians, some still finishing their return from alt form. One of them flipped a device up onto the wall. It crawled immediately up to one of the speakers wired into the hall's general audio system. "We are Decepticons," boomed a voice from the speakers. "We claim 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤 in the name of no castes, in the name of free Cybertron, in the name of Megatron!" Claim 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤? Starscream thought. Was there a ground force operating as well? The voice thinned out as all of the atmosphere evacuated from the Great Hall. Starscream leaned over and touched his head to Sentinel Prime's. "Leader," he said, "we must—" Rocket fire and the boom of energy detonations cut him off, invading Cybertronians, some still in the middle of reversions to their protoforms from seeker variations, continued to pour through the hole in 𝕬𝕤𝕤𝕤's outside walls. "I will fight!" roared Sentinel Prime, the words vibrating into Starscream's audio sensors from the inside of his head. "Who are these Decepticons? Who dares? Who is this Megatron?" A fusillade of ion bolts hammered into Sentinel Prime's torso, knocking him spinning across a row of seating. Starscream fired back, suppressing and covering as Sentinel Prime got to his feet. The leader looked shocked, and Starscream was surprised to note, afraid. Of this rabble? Contemptuously, Starscream blew one of them back into the hole that they'd come out in through, and then he followed Sentinel Prime up one of the aisles, beating an orderly retreat along with the rest of the audience that hadn't been damaged or destroyed by the initial penetration. He shoved Sentinel Prime ahead, staying in physical contact with him. "Leader, we will protect you. Now is not the time for you to fight." And Sentinel Prime went along. Starscream felt contempt for him now, not just for Megatron's cannon fodder enlisted to pull off this operation. Sentinel Prime's time was long past. He did not know it, but Starscream did. So did Megatron. And so did two of his subordinates, Skywarp and Thundercracker, waiting in a mechanical access corridor where the atmosphere pressure was still maximal and the power was still on. Starscream shoved Sentinel Prime in ahead. "These are my trusted lieutenants," Starscream said. "They will protect you until we can sort all of this out." Sentinel Prime nodded. "Go, Starscream. If you can find help, do so. If not, at least spread the truth about what has happened here today." Once he had been a great warrior, had Sentinel Prime. Starscream knew the stories. Now he had lost his nerve, had been complicit in the freezing and slow death of Cybertronian society, the death of 1,000 castes. It was time for new leadership, who would rebuild what had been long lost and forgotten. This operation, the taking of Alti-Hex, was a statement to Cybertron, and simultaneously the first tangible sign that the Decepticons were more than just rhetoric and arena-style posing. Skywarp and Thundercracker would take good care of him, deep in Kaon, out of the way, where he belonged.